in order for us to actually know that in the first place, we have to have that data. We can't just go off, well, here's the ROAS, here's the CPA for the product, because AOVs, yes, those are different. We can see that in ads, but we don't necessarily know the actual contribution margin of those individual products.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Josh, and over here we have Caden, who's going to be on the video with me. We're going to be talking about back-end numbers and the importance of back-end numbers and what happens when you do and don't have those numbers in place. We have a business here. We're selling RC toys.
Coolest thing ever. I definitely like the truck the best. Yeah. Just got to put that out there.
So our boss comes to us and says our profit is down by 30%. So in our ads, in our in-app, we see that A is the number one seller, and then it goes to B, C, and D. You can all see number 2, number 3, number 4 seller ads that are selling the most. But based off this information, do you think you can make an educated guess on what to push?
Could probably figure it out, but it would take a lot longer. I think the first thing would be, if profits are down 30%, we need to figure out what the actual margins are on each of the products themselves to figure it out. So if I were to not have the margins, which would be pretty much leave us in a scenario where we just have to go through and test every single individual product, pretty much from the most, top seller versus like the, lowest seller from top to bottom. I would say, okay, first of all, let's see if we can see a correlation to increasing spend on the top seller. If we don't see a correlation to profitability and actually decrease in profitability, then we need to reevaluate if that product is even a good one to push. And so then I just pretty much go through the steps of one at a time to then figure out where the correlation is. But in order to do that effectively, we also have to make sure that the ads don't overlap with other products. So it's almost impossible to know for sure. It would be pretty much, I would say, with like 70% certainty that we could probably figure out which product it is, but it would take a really, really long time. And that's only with like 4 products. It'd take a really, really long time if you have anywhere around, let's say, 100 products to figure that out from like top to bottom.
Well, couldn't you just look at like conversions and CPA on each product and app and go from there? Or is that going to just kind of skew things?
Yeah, so if we did that, it's one of those things to where if profit's down 30% and the averages are holding, like we're not necessarily seeing any like ROAS shifts in the platform, then it kind of comes down to one of those scenarios of, okay, like which products shifted? And then that would pretty much bring me to the conclusion of we need to see the actual profitability of each individual product. So we know that if a high margin product swapped to a low margin product or vice versa, that's going to affect the overall profitability of the business. And so in order for us to actually know that in the first place, we have to have that data. We can't just go off, well, here's the ROAS, here's the CPA for the product, because AOVs, yes, those are different. We can see that in ads, but we don't necessarily know the actual contribution margin of those individual products.
Gotcha. So I'm going to pull these yellow like stickers off, and this is our back-end data. So now we have the number one seller on ads. It's only a 10% margin and 40 were sold. Then we see the number 3. Actually, that should be reversed now. It should be.
Don't flip that.
That should be number 2. Nope, I'm switching number already. Number 3.
Okay.
That's all good. So we have number 2 seller on ads at 40% margin, but only 7 sold. Then 3, 20%, 15, and then number 4, 70%, and 10 sold. So based off this information right here, what would you change in your ads?
Yeah, so the first thing is, remember that we're looking at profit, we're not looking at sales, right? So we're looking at the actual, how much money is getting to the bank account and if that margin's getting worse or better. When we have back-end numbers and we have an idea of what the margins are, then we can obviously better determine exactly what's going on in the account to then make better decisions, right? So instead of me having to go through and do incrementality testing on increasing spend on this product, seeing if that helps profitability from the client's perspective, and then increase this product and just slowly go down the line, and by the time I get to the actual cause of that decrease in profitability or increase in profitability, we would have wasted all of that ad spend to essentially just find that product in the first place. So if we have the veil removed and we can see profitability on the back end and then how that impacts P&Ls, we can then say, instead of going from product 1, 2, and 3, we can say, okay, let's increase the spend specifically on product 4 and see how that increases our overall, sales. Now, we might find out that the reason why Google wasn't pushing this or Facebook wasn't pushing this was because maybe there wasn't a large enough audience for it. And so I would just want to start from the highest margin, see how far I can push that, and then slowly work my way back. So I'd say, okay, let's push this one first, highest margin, and then let's push this product next, and then this product after that, and then obviously then the last product. And I'd work my way from the top down in terms of highest profitable to the least profitable product.
So let's say that I see that this is 70% margin right here. Why wouldn't I just put almost all my budget into this one right here, since it's most profitable?
Yeah, so this all comes down to how the account history is. So if you're in a scenario where let's say Google caps you out at I don't know, $50 a day, let's just say, meaning that you've only seen it spend up to $50 a day, I wouldn't want to disrupt the account too much because, like I said, the company is still making money off these other campaigns. We just don't know the degree of it. We're trying to find the equilibrium to then say, okay, how far can we push this versus, pretty much pull from all these other campaigns and throw it into this one. So if I were to look at it from that perspective, I'd say, okay, let's start doing some small carryovers of the low margin product campaign first, and then throw that into the 70% margin campaign as much as possible and slowly transition as much as I can over there while watching the actual averages go up or down. And then if I see the average go down, then obviously we have to pull back and then throw into, let's say, product B instead of just throwing them all right away into the highest margin.
So with that in mind, let's say that we start increasing the number 2 seller right here, that 40% margin. We're trying to see if we can push a little bit more sold items for this one. But, I don't see really any conversions for the last month in this, but I start seeing more conversions on product A, which I don't want. 10% margin. Do you know why that is?
Yeah, so that'd be a scenario, and this has happened, I would say probably about 20% of the time when I look at accounts and find the correlations there, is we'll notice that when we push a certain product, let's say in this example, product A, the actual sales on product B go up, even though product B is not being pushed as much as A. So what we would then do, and this is essentially a gold mine of you find that information, this is awesome because that means that there's a demand for product B. And on top of that, if product B has a better margin, then you should definitely try to be pushing product B specifically instead of that of product A. But if you find out that the correlation is really strong, and let's say CPCs are lower or there's more efficiency on the actual introductory product, which is product A, and then they sell on product B, then yeah, I would definitely push product A more because then it links the two together if you can't just push product B on its own.
Gotcha. So let's say that the sticky note's gone. Let me go grab it. Let's say we introduce another product, but I don't have budget for the full amount of this, and I want to steal from these campaigns or a select few from these right here to push into product F. That's kind of an unknown. What are the issues that could arise if I steal other budgets from different campaigns to fund this one at the same time?
Yeah, so the number one, I actually see this a lot too, where clients will want to push their winning. They think it's a winning product when in reality it's not. It just has been the product that they move the most, and by winning I mean actual profitability. And so this is one of those scenarios where it's, if you're on the edge of profitability or you're getting closer to the edge of profitability, adding another experiment into the mix is just not, it's not good. There's so much volatility involved that it's just not worth the risk. It's better to just add spend versus take away spend from the current system. So what I would look at first is if the client doesn't have, or you as a business owner don't have the actual test budget allocated on the side for moving it around, and that hasn't found a place to land for efficiency yet, then I would just allocate that to this overall new, just totally new product test. If you're in a scenario where you've located some bit of inefficiency and you don't want to allocate it to that number 1 seller for whatever reason, right? So maybe you're noticing that the actual profitability is starting to slow down on the efficiency side of things, then that could be a budget to throw into the other product itself, just for a totally far out there experiment. But I would say it just kind of comes down to the question, to the business owner of like, well, do you want to make more money or do you want to like risk it all kind of thing? I mean, it's really a risk thing when it comes down to it.
Gotcha.
So hopefully that makes sense, but yeah.
That makes sense to me. So let's say that we're actually up 30%. What would you do differently if you knew that your profitability is going up based off these numbers right here in the middle? We don't have F anymore. Let's just throw that aside. Would you increase budget by a certain percentage? For how long? And, are you looking at back end numbers at a certain period of time? Like, when do you make those decisions?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing comes down to locating if there's another correlation going on. Because if I know, for example, that the number one seller is product A and our margin is so bad on it, I would first look at, okay, if this were the case, meaning that if we were to pay this much for this product to sell and it's putting us in the red, then there's for sure a correlation going on, meaning that people are buying other products, right? And you can see that in Shopify. You can look at the overall sales from like the customer journey. And you can kind of figure out like if it was from Facebook, it's from Google, whatever the case is, to kind of get a better idea as to which ad actually drove this. But I would say if your profit is up 30% and we know that, it's working, then I would just scale. It's working. I wouldn't want to risk it. Now, if we see overlap happening and the client's like, hey, we want to see if we can get even more efficient, and I know that product A is overlapping with, like, let's say product D now, meaning they see product A first and then they convert on product D and I can prove that, then I would say, okay, let's try pushing product D still, but I would put a way, way smaller amount to it. And honestly, if profits are up and we know that's due to ads, I wouldn't really touch anything. I would just try to scale it up roughly 20%. If it's on Facebook, I would do 20% probably every 3 days. If it's on Google, I'd probably do around 20% every week, every other week, depending on the size of the business.
Gotcha. So 20%, every week for Facebook, and you said 3 days. Sorry, not
every 3 days for Facebook.
Every 3 days for Facebook, and then every week for Google Ads.
Depending on the budget, yeah. Gotcha. If you're a very large account, like we're talking like at least like $500,000, $1 million or more, 20% is a very large amount. So we'd want to make more educated decisions in that scenario, meaning that we'd probably break up that percentage versus just blanketing it across. But if you're a small account, overlapping is going to happen regardless. And if we can prove that, then yeah, if you're profitable and we don't see any diminishing returns, then yeah, 100%.
So yeah, that's pretty much it for that scenario right there. Caden, do you have anything to add on to that? Closing thoughts?
I think the whole point of this video kind of wanted to highlight that ads don't necessarily mean that your like actual product that's selling good on ads is not actually contributing to your actual business. And in order for us to actually know if that's a benefit or not, or if there's just so many different opportunities available, we need to see some sort of margin, P&Ls, like any sort of indicator that's a global result and not just a Google reported result. Is really important, right? Especially if your products, and it says on the sheet, but they're all like, let's say the same price or very similar pricing, then we can't be as simple as looking at ads and seeing that the AOV is larger and that, is this actual product. It's going to blend so much together with everything. And so getting P&Ls, I think is probably one of the biggest issues is getting solid P&Ls and being able to track the actual profitability on the back end versus just looking at ROAS and saying, yep, we're doing good. Yep, we're doing bad. Because the actual profit for that ROAS is so blended together, and correlations are obviously the biggest thing that we're looking out for. So,
ooh, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I can't stress enough like how good P&Ls are, or just like back-end access to what's going on with the products individually and by categories as well. It helps our job out tremendously. If we don't have that, then it's really tough to make more educated decisions on your account structure. It also takes longer, and it's a little bit more frustrating sometimes with communication between a client and us. So this is the number one thing for like any type of business, is to have those back end numbers so that you can also help yourself and then help people who are trying to work with you as well. So I think it's like the biggest takeaway from this whole process.
I think it just comes down to the simple point is just, if you hire an agency and you're paying them, let's say like $5,000, whatever the amount is, and you're not $5,000 more efficient, then you're wasting money. As simple as that. Agency can show you a 50x. Oh my God, amazing. But like the whole point of you hiring an agency or hiring someone to run your ads is so you're more efficient than you were previously. And if their fee outweighs the efficiency, then it's just not worth it. And it's literally that black and white. I think people need to focus back on that, where it's like, did they actually deliver on the value or not at the end of the day? And P&Ls just help you figure that out more. So
yeah, I absolutely agree 100%. So yeah, that's pretty much it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Adios.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Josh with another Google Ads video, and today we're going to be talking about a chicken. But not just any chicken. This chicken is very business and puts his business hat on and gets to work at trying to make as much money as possible. But with all jokes aside, this is a metaphor for business metrics.